But it just creates levels to it.
Yeah, phase 3 and 4 are going to be pretty wild.
All right, small break from the podcast. We're back now. We're going to talk about some real estate stuff today, but some updates for you guys too. Some fun stuff going on with Ryan Pineda recently.
Yeah.
We, along with some other partners, hired him to coach us to scale our businesses. And initially kind of went to him with one idea and left with another.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty exciting. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think for me, the biggest thing was just even seeing what he thought we should focus on. And a lot of it's super simple stuff that people think about it, but we didn't think about it. Like just how often are we engaging with our whole database?
Yeah.
And it makes me go, man, we need to think more simple sometimes.
Yeah, one of the biggest things he said that stood out to me was people activate for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give people in your database. So people that have already reached out, they've called, texted, or emailed, they're in there, or they're past clients. You have to try out a bunch of different ways to get them to respond.
Yeah.
And not that you're like begging for a response, but you're putting something in front of them that they might want to engage with.
Mm-hmm.
And so just by a couple ideas that he had for us, got crazy good responses.
No, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we sent out just like a new construction text. Hey, this is a promo going on. Very salesy, not really our personality, but we got like 40.
But still like personable. It wasn't completely fake. It was like, hey, it's Sam. Aaron and I were out at this new development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Couldn't believe this rate they have.
Mm-hmm.
It's still like personable.
It is.
People also understand that we are salesmen.
Yeah.
They're not like confused by what our job is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important to always keep focused on.
Yeah. I like that he had us send it out to everybody, not overthink who it should go to, who it shouldn't go to.
Yeah, we even were like, hey, what about this? What about this? He's like, just send it to him. See what happens.
The whole
He's like, let's just test it. Let's see what happens.
It's a good test.
Yeah. So Ryan Pineda has a big YouTube channel, has a big Instagram following, TikTok following. And he's also a very active real estate investor. So he has a company that does flips, a company that does wholesaling. He has a company that sells leads to investors. And then he has like a coaching business.
Yeah.
So with all kinds of digital products and stuff like that. He does really well for himself. He's also like a super genuine guy.
Yeah. What struck me is how well-rounded he is. Like he surrounds himself with people from every business, not just like your classic real estate coach who's only friends with like realtors and lenders.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm surprised he wants to coach realtors because of kind of how he thinks. But he kind of sought out one of our partners in this and was like, hey, I think you guys just have a lot of potential. And he's like, you have all this like untapped potential that you like don't even see. And so we kind of started this conversation with him. And then after a few hours with him, he saw this other thing like, hey, why don't we just grow this for now?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I promise you there's a lot of runway there that you guys are missing. And then we started to see it too.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah, it's like a whole new area of work.
And not just new construction, but just kind of how do we market to our people more consistently?
Yeah, because I think people forget that like there's wholesalers out there and investors that have real estate businesses that are like big.
Yeah.
Like they very thought out campaigns, all kinds of stuff that they're working on.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like reflecting on everything. How well did that work? And they like know like the percentages and
yeah, they're less emotional about the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so it helps them to just be a little more analytical about like, okay, that one was 1% better. Let's go with that.
Big thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But then like us trying to kind of build something out that's more like that than just your friendly neighborhood realtor is a big jump.
So one thing I want to talk about today is this curriculum that I'm developing for the Legit Agents community. But that kind of shows me like a lot of realtors, they don't turn it into a business.
Mm-hmm.
They don't find a way to become unemotional about it and think like, okay, I'm offering this product or service. These people are choosing to use it. This is what it does. This is what it doesn't do. This is, my guarantee to these people. And then like, this is how I scale this. It's kind of interesting. Real estate kind of disguises itself as entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
You can jump in it with that kind of mindset. but you can also just jump in it as like, I just kind of want to work for myself. That's not being an entrepreneur. That's not being a business owner. That's just like being employed by yourself.
Yeah.
Which is 100% okay. Maybe you just don't want a boss.
Yeah.
You just want a job that, makes enough money. You're just trying to provide or maybe you're trying to provide a second income, supplemental income. You don't have to think of it as this big thing, but people often think that they're becoming an entrepreneur or becoming a business owner by getting into this. You become a business owner by scaling it like a business and by operating it like a business.
That's true. Yeah.
So this curriculum that I'm working on is kind of going to go like phase 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, kind of beginner, intermediate, advanced levels of scaling your real estate business. So phase 1 is what I'm working on now, and I'm going to shoot videos for all these. So I more just wanted to, I thought the podcast would be a good platform to kind of think through some of it.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea.
And get some of your insight, and also just force myself to communicate some of it. And phase 1's pretty simple. So you're getting into this business. You need a functioning CRM.
Yeah.
So these 4 things. You need a functioning CRM. You need clear systems and processes. You need to possess the ability to operate, communicate, and execute, understand those systems and processes. And then you need one consistent lead source. One consistent activity you're doing to generate leads. Whether that's you're paying for them, you're doing open houses. You could do 5, 6 open houses every weekend if you're really committed to doing open houses. And people do that.
They do, yeah.
You could be, running ads and learning how to get better at that. You could be cold calling expires and for sale by owners. There's a lot of different things you could be doing. You could be going to investor meetups. I did that when I first got into real estate. You find opportunities. If you put yourself in those spaces with the goal of finding opportunities, you find them.
You do, yeah.
So every lead source works if you're willing to do the work required.
Yeah.
So those are the main things. And one clarifier, like we're always kind of learning about new lead sources. So I'm not saying stop learning. I'm saying no, educate on many, but focus on one.
Focus on one.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're a new agent and you've done 4 or 5 open houses? You're on a team or maybe at a brokerage and everybody's talking about all these other sources that you're doing.
Yeah.
How would you help that agent not get distracted and go, this isn't working, I want to go do that?
Yeah, that's good. So one thing that you kind of wanted to put on this list was find a mentor.
Yeah.
And that's it is kind of needed. And you're pointing out why. Like in the beginning, it's so easy to kind of look everywhere and see like, oh, this person's doing it this way and this way and this way. And you have to go through some kind of process to decide on what you're going to do. We'll talk about that at the end. But it's not a bad idea to be somewhere where you have some mentorship. So new agents join under us. We're working closely with them to help them build their businesses, to make sure they're not being pulled from one thing to the next, being that kind of backstop to like, hang on, you haven't set up this yet.
Yeah.
Let's dial it back and set this up.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on, don't make that more complicated than it needs to be. It just needs to do these 3 things. So like somebody in your sphere that can do that kind of thing, especially if they're an agent in your upline or a team leader or a coach. Like a lot of agents don't get into the business with money to spend on a coach. So.
No, yeah.
But you can find some kind of mentorship like that.
Pretty easily. I think even without like having to have a team lead.
Yeah.
Like even like EXP, like you come in, you know the CRM that they advise you to use.
Yeah.
You've got the group coaching. You've got pretty much everything you need to get started right off the bat. You don't necessarily need like one-on-one, like how do I build this yet? But you maybe. But you can utilize all the free resources at most brokerages to get to that beginning.
And reach out to successful people in the business.
Yeah.
Like when I was first getting started and I would be making an offer on a property, if the listing agent started offering me some kind of advice, I would soak it in.
Yeah.
Maybe my buyer was being kind of difficult and they're like, hey, I think you should cut this buyer. Like they're like pulling you around. Like this is ridiculous. And I remember Greg specifically saying like, you could call me anytime. I know you're new. Call me anytime if you need help with something, you want some advice on something, no problem. I've still never done a deal with him, but there are people like that in the industry that aren't just trying to get something from you.
Yeah. So like as an agent's like maybe going through his first transaction and there's all this stuff going on, is it too early to start identifying like what went wrong?
No.
with somebody like that, or even with yourself, or
Yeah, some kind of like process, like after action report. I'm actually going to put that down here. Let's start with number one, though. A functioning CRM.
yeah.
Most brokerages give you a CRM.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to go out and find another one that you like better.
Mm-hmm.
You can build within whatever they give you.
Yep.
Whether that's KV Core or Follow Up Boss or Boomtown, whatever it is. Good enough.
Especially when you're starting, because you probably utilize 5% of the whole CRM when you start.
Absolutely. All you need to do is organize and communicate.
That's it. Yeah.
You need to do two things. You need to organize people in, just get them in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then organize them in some kind of pipeline or funnel, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
that indicates where they are in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So we have pipelines in Agent HQ, and ours are completely customizable. So you can have, brand new lead, attempting contact. You could have 20 steps if you want,
Mm-hmm.
but also 4 steps is fine. New lead, cold, warm, hot,
Yeah.
closed. Like it could just be that, but then the next step beyond that is identifying what you do
Yeah.
in those phases.
Mm-hmm. Which changes as you kind of
Yeah.
get better at working with leads. You figure out, oh, it's actually more helpful if I do this at this stage rather than later.
Right.
Or it's actually super helpful for me to call them every day, or maybe it's not, or maybe it's better just send them a text. So you
And some of
figure
that too
out.
is like asking for permission,
Mm-hmm.
like or asking for preferences. Hey, I've got you on my schedule to call every Tuesday at 10. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Do you prefer me to communicate a different way? Like asking some of those questions, that's like relational dynamics too. Like, no, just have a relationship with this person. Ask them how is best to communicate with them.
Yeah. Yeah, consumers, I think, are a lot simpler than we make them.
Yeah, of course they are. But when in this business, you're like trying to convince them to do something. You feel like not many salespeople get into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
People get into real estate, and then they're like kind of awkward about how to do it.
That's a good point.
But
yeah.
no, like this person is in your system because they have some kind of interest in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I like as we're getting different style of leads in, that I'm like, let's just text them until they say stop.
Mm-hmm.
They indicated interest.
They did,
Why would
yeah.
we do anything else but contact them until they tell us not to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Even our past clients, we send quarterly gifts, we send, texts, emails. They don't respond most of the time, and
No.
then they do, and then they're like, "Hey, can you help me sell this house? And I want to buy another one." It's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, they know it's just part of the business, but they do feel like it feels good. But
Well, and that's the point. It's part of the business.
mm-hmm.
Like any business would do that.
yeah,
Buy a
yeah.
car, they follow up with you. Hey, it's time to do your maintenance. Hey, it's time to do this. Hey, can we buy that car back from you and give you a new one? Like they're doing all kinds of things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like when you're at a car dealership and they give you coffee, you're not thinking, "Oh, Jeff, what a guy! Like, it's just so nice. I want to go out to dinner with him
No,
or something."
no,
You're
not
like,
at all.
no, you're like thinking, "Oh, this is a nice dealership."
You're not
They
thinking
give
like we're friends now.
Yeah,
It's like,
no.
no.
you're just like, "Wow, they really take care of their customers."
Now we're a little more involved in like a big thing for
Mm-hmm.
in people's lives. So some of those lines are a little different. But when it comes to levels of communication, so say someone comes in, they say they want to buy in 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go in warm. They've at least indicated some kind of timeline. You're going to call them once a month.
Mm-hmm.
They say they want to buy in 90 days. You're going to contact them at least once a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. And then there's a couple layers with this too. There's what I recommend is some kind of impersonal weekly communication, like a weekly newsletter, like a deal
Mm-hmm.
of the week, like a check out the local events in the area kind of a thing.
Yeah.
This is also like the MLS search is going to fall under this.
Mm-hmm.
But I like one to be from the business, one to be maybe from some kind of search.
Yeah.
Then there's also the layer of personal and timeline dependent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Tanya just sent us a bunch of texts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to get back to her, but she's still a year out.
Yeah.
And she understands, like, hey, yeah, we're going to reach out every month. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll respond when you have questions, but we're not just like eager to hop on the phone every time you text. Like, and she gets that.
She does. Yeah.
So that's always dependent on their timeline and their preferences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whenever you set up these pipelines or statuses, whatever, if you're a new agent, you need to write these down. Say, okay, if someone's hot, this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Text every Monday, call every Wednesday, revisit every Friday. Like you could
work
make
that
a
out.
task list very simply,
Mm-hmm.
then just set up a automation within your system to when they're tagged this,
Mm-hmm.
create these tasks.
Yeah. Yeah. That
And any CRM can do that.
any CRM. And I think asking around helps too. Like seeing, hey, how like what do you do? You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
They go, oh,
How-
I call them every day. You're like, whoa, really? You're like, every day? But
You're like, whoa, I'm not going to do that.
you don't know what you don't know either. Like I remember somebody telling me that they contact their open house leads every day for like 7 days when they first come in. That's like terrifying. And I'd do that and they wouldn't respond until and then like day 5, they'd randomly be like, oh, thank you so much. So you don't really know what you don't know. It might seem annoying, but
Yeah.
you can't just assume that you know what the customer's thinking when you haven't worked with any customers.
Right. You can't. So that's CRM level 1. So every phase of this will have a next level of the CRM.
Yeah.
There's things like, okay, somebody booked a call and they didn't show up. What message goes to them? That's not in level 1.
No, yeah.
That is a necessary automation,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not a necessary thing to get going.
Yeah, and you got to figure out how easy it is as a realtor to get distracted with all that.
Yes.
Yeah, that could.
Especially, we talked about, being educated on sources and educated on processes, things like that. As you hear things, people look back and think like, oh yeah, it's because of this one thing I did that everything worked. And then you want to take that and be like, oh, I have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
No, yeah.
If they say, oh, it's because these special treats I had at my open houses, but you don't get that or want to do that or have the money to do that, like, no, it's not because of that thing. It's because of something else.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's typically just because of follow-up.
Yeah.
Somebody signed up and they kept calling them.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically the success.
The follow-up is huge.
Yeah.
And these aren't super complicated lead sources. Like typically the lead sources you start with are not very, very tough to work through. Like an open house lead, it would just be, hey, it was so nice to meet you. You're not saying that to like necessarily like an online, I don't know, ad that you ran, and then you're not like, oh, it's different.
Right.
So I think it is a lot of like I don't know. Do you think it's more of a people business in the beginning with the leads that typically people go after?
It can be, but let's talk about like going after expired sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has their house listed, it expires. This is a very common lead source for new agents. You're calling them along with everybody else that's doing the same thing, asking them what their plan is for their house.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, do you want to relist it? I want to list it for you. It's pretty much the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's kind of tricky.
The convo,
Yeah.
it is tricky. Yeah,
So yeah, it is people, but it's kind of more.
it is
There's more to it than that.
A lot of it does go back to, I think, not like I think just studying what people are doing is good simultaneously. It doesn't mean stop doing what you're doing, but I think as you're doing it, identify what's not going well, and then try to search out other people that are doing it and how are they doing it, because then you can adjust your process.
We keep jumping to the leads though.
I know.
So systems and processes, having clear systems and processes. So this really boils down to just managing your calendar.
Mm-hmm.
The basic thing of, if I say I'm going to do something, putting it on your calendar. If I say I'm going to call that person at this time, like having a block on my calendar where I call people, like those kind of things, the basic of managing your calendar is the basic system and process that helps you be a good realtor.
Yeah, no one calls you in the beginning, so you need to fill the day with other stuff. So then with this source, with your one lead source,
We're selling
and the
systems and
calendar,
process.
like how would you put that in your calendar? like that you're going to work on that source and
Oh, absolutely.
and then how often and
Yeah. So your calendar of like commitments, but also like time blocks of, generating new leads or prospecting or whatever you want to call it. Then follow up, then education. Because all those things need to be in your calendar in some way.
So new agent's got 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. time blocked for, I don't know, follow up. And then he gets a text, hey, can we see this house at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow?
Yeah.
What would you say to that guy? What should his response be?
It always depends, like how much is the income needed, first of all. But typically if you're managing your calendar and say, hey, I can't do that time, but I could do 10:30. Does that work for you? Like people typically don't mind.
They don't.
If they can't,
Then you
make an exception
make it work.
and move that block to a different time of the day and still do it.
Yeah. But people appreciate a busy person. They don't really like that they talk to someone and they're like, oh, I'm free all day. It's like, what are you doing all day?
Yeah. And don't fake busyness. So say in that scenario, like you have these movable blocks. Like, hey, I can make any time work. My stuff's pretty movable today.
Yeah.
Like even that is different than saying I'm free all day.
Yeah. No,
It's like, no, I'm working, but I could make an exception and step out for a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, the basic of managing your calendar. So then I have to-do list management. That's more of like, yeah, all these tasks that come from your CRM are great, but you're like, I got to send this email. I got to call this person. Like, how does a task get into your system? I typically use my calendar for it. I just put a 15-minute block on my calendar, call this person.
Yeah.
Because I'm just more tied to my calendar than I am to a to-do list. Because if I'm at my desk, I might write stuff down as I'm like thinking about it, or I might type it in an Apple Note or like something like that. But when it comes to things that have to be done, I put them on my calendar.
Yeah. That's it. Definitely having a list that you're checking off, whether like regardless how you do it, is 100%.
Yeah. And identifying the way that you work. A lot of the process of buying or selling a property is a lot of checklists.
It is, yeah.
So that's another thing here in the systems and processes is hiring a transaction coordinator. I would never tell an agent to do it without it.
No.
I've never done a deal without a transaction coordinator. It's not something I want to know how to do or need to know how to do. Sometimes I don't even remember the login for that system.
Yeah.
Because one of my TCs changed it at some point because she got like locked out. So I have to go back and look. But yeah, having a transaction coordinator. So we pay per transaction. We typically ask our clients to pay that, put it as part of their closing costs.
Yeah.
But if they don't want to pay it, it's worth the $400 that we pay that person
Very much
to
so.
not have to think about dates and deadlines, communicate with title, communicate additional things with the lender. Even they're often communicating to our client as well to make sure they have everything they need, make sure they know what they need to do, when they need to do it, all those kind of things.
Yeah, and there's tons of systems out there that you can use, but most of them you can follow along with the TC and you can log in and be like, okay, where are we with everything and see what's checked off and what isn't checked off. But a checklist ensures that you don't make any mistakes.
Yeah. But your transaction coordinator is also just including you on all the emails.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you see everything that's happening. You learn the process. Yeah, I could do it without a TC. I just don't want to.
Yeah. Most agents, they worry like, what if I don't have the answer to that specific question that comes in?
Yeah.
I think they forget that that happens no matter where you're at.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's always a curveball.
Yeah, during the transaction process, I'm not assuming I'm going to have all the answers.
And you shouldn't feel like you need to
No.
either. And the client doesn't feel like you need to have all the answers.
No.
Yeah.
Like the house Elena was working on an offer on, the pool popped, which means the pool was empty when the water table was really high down below, and it pushed the pool up just because like differential and
and
pressure.
you know that could happen.
And it's like, okay, how do you address the soil after that? It's like, yeah, this is new. You come into new things every time, and you just navigate it.
I don't know if this is jumping ahead, but what would you say to the agent, just like while we're on the topic of like not knowing the answer to all these questions, but the agent that wants to understand construction, loans, areas, schools, financing, the process, all that?
So I think
marketing.
just the actual transaction process is more important than understanding everything that could happen. It's like, what is guaranteed to happen?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to navigate an inspection. We're going to negotiate that. We're going to navigate an appraisal typically. Maybe negotiate that. And we're going to navigate some kind of final walkthrough.
How do agents feel confident when they're out with their clients when they don't know any of these things?
Yeah. I mean, we've all been there.
We have, yeah. But I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to think. What did
You don't feel confident.
you don't? Yeah, you don't feel confident,
And that's okay.
Yeah, like it's okay to not know. I think that is it.
And I would tell a person like one of our agents, well, what do you feel confident in? In like connecting with them and like helping them see potential problems with the house, or helping them identify whether or not they love it. Like you don't have to know the whole transaction process like the back of your hand in the beginning. You're gonna go through it with a TC. You can call the title company and ask for help. You can call the lender and ask for help. Like there's people there. You can call the other agent
and
be like, hey, sorry, I'm new. Can you help me know how to navigate this?
Agents love that.
I love it when we get those kind of calls.
It's like, because we've been there too.
Yeah,
it's not like we're gonna be like, oh, that's embarrassing, you know?
Yeah,
like, we'll be like, yeah, hey, here's how it works, and
absolutely
keeps the deal together.
Okay, next is the abilities to execute these systems and processes. So your calendar, your to-do list, your transaction process. A lot of this comes back to like understanding the contract, understanding the process. There's a lot you can take from the process just by reading the contract a few times. I remember when I first got started, I would read the contract every day.
Really?
I did that for like a month. So I know like
that's why you know it so
every
well.
little nuance of it. I'm like, oh yeah, that only applies like this, and no, I know it very well because I thought I just want to know it well. So contract proficiency is a big part of that. Negotiation proficiency is another thing that just is gonna come.
Yeah, it naturally.
It's
comes.
super hard in the beginning.
It is. I will say the main thing I would tell a new agent is, hey, just that person wants to get paid just as bad as you do.
Yeah.
We all want to. We work together. That's the smoothest transactions, and you being a butthole presenting your offer to him is not going to make him present your offer to his clients with like, oh, this guy's great.
Right, unbiased. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Acknowledging that both sides want this to happen helps negotiations.
Yeah.
And also, like, it can't be emotional. Even if your client is emotional about it, it's like, hey, this is what is important to them. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Also, a million ways to do it.
Yeah. And you don't know those yet.
Everybody does it differently.
You just don't know those yet.
Yeah.
You have to go through quite a few deals to learn a lot of those. In the midst of this, working through some kind of presentation is really valuable for buyers and for sellers. Even if it's 5 slides. Hey, this is what's going to happen before we go see houses. We'll have to, kind of answer these questions, define your preferences, your timeline. We got to get this thing signed. We go look at houses. Say we're going to go out. This is how many houses we're going to see. This is our goal with those. And then if we, want to write an offer, we're going to go sit down somewhere and talk through what's the best for that, even if we can just sit down at that house.
Yeah.
Then once we're under contract, we'll have these 3 main things: the inspection, the appraisal, the closing. Then afterward, if anything comes up, I'm here for you. So like the buyer presentation can be really simple. Now they might say, well, how would you, negotiate if they don't want to come down on the price? And that we get asked that question regularly.
Yeah. Do you want me to answer it?
Sure.
What was it again? How do you?
How are you, like, just an example of how you're going to negotiate?
If they don't want to come down on price?
Just overall.
It would be very unemotional. Hey, they're not going to come down. These are our options. Option A, we can come up to their price. Option B, we can go find something else. And you just say it like that. You don't have to convince them to come up in price. You just let them know their options. And 9 times out of 10, they'll just realize that you're there for them, and they'll come up in price. It's pretty simple.
Or the other people will soften and come down.
Yeah. One of the things I'm thinking of, like, so we're on organizing. what is it? How to execute all these systems and processes, right, consistently. So I'm thinking like most new agents, they come in for various reasons. They become a realtor from various different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Most of them, or a lot of them, have not been put in a situation where they have to work on stuff like having a calendar or working for yourself or having checklists. So how would you what would you tell that person that's like, I've never done this before? Like, how do I start? How important is it? Can I just wing it?
That's where I think just boiling it down to a few things. And with everybody, I would go deeper into their calendar of like, what are different levels of time blocks that you have even? Like, there's some that are foundational. You have to do these no matter what. Maybe you even have to do them at a certain time. There's other times that are more flexible. Like, you have to just start trying.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you're also just not that busy.
You're not, yeah. You're like, I can handle it all.
Yeah. But eventually, your calendar really serves you.
Yeah.
If you use it. But doing some kind of like after action report, after a showing, after a phone call, after a transaction's closed. So after action report would be what went well, what didn't go well.
Yeah.
How can I increase what went well, and how can I, mitigate what didn't go well?
Yeah.
But running through those 4 simple questions after you botch an expired call, so helpful.
Yeah, big time.
Like, what went well? They answered.
Yeah.
Okay. What didn't go well?
I went,
yeah, I didn't know what to say first.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, how do I increase what went well? Okay, keep making calls because sometimes people answer. How do I mitigate what didn't go well? Okay, let me plan my first 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's that after action report. Doing that about different levels of things is super valuable. Doing that about your day, doing that about your week. Those are the kind of things I used to do one every single day.
Yeah. Oh, it's good.
That helped me to get to a different level.
Yeah. You have to ask yourself, like, once you've kind of gone through this for a bit, like a month, then maybe you have to ask yourself, what kind of agent do I want to be? Like, do I want to be the self-employed agent that does 1 to 2 closings? Or do I want to be an agent that's like building something that people are going to appreciate, admire, that am I going to really build a business?
Yeah.
And then you just have to force yourself to break out of the mold a bit and be pretty uncomfortable with doing new things. Like, I hate organization, but like, I knew that, it had to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen either. Just slowly keep happening as you go through it.
Well, and it feels organized when it's small, even if it's just in your head.
Yeah.
But you hit a point where it's like, oh no, things are slipping through the cracks. You don't usually hit that in phase 1 though.
You don't. No, you're just so busy trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But you get to a point where you're like, what kind of agent do I want to be? What do I really want this to look like? Do I want it to look like a career?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a full career. It could leverage you into the next thing, but you got to ask yourself do I want to do something good or not?
Yeah. So lastly, 1 lead source. So obviously I built a YouTube channel. You had internet leads at your first brokerage. You were also calling expireds. But just 1 source that okay, if I make 100 calls a week, I can get this. If I host 4 open houses every weekend, I can get a handful of new buyer leads. Like, it doesn't have to be a lot, but you just need something coming in the top of the funnel.
Yeah.
To decide on this, it can be simple. Yeah, do whatever your mentor does, or do whatever you heard is the best right now. But you have to really focus on it.
You do, yeah.
Because what happens is you start doing it. I start publishing YouTube videos. Super exciting. They're getting comments, likes. I get a couple phone calls with their renters.
Yeah.
I need to make some money. Like, what am I going to go do? Like, no, I'm going to keep making the videos because I'm committed to building this lead source.
That lead source is going to serve you in years to come, but at first it's going to look like it's sucking and it's not working.
Yeah. So running through some kind of simple criteria of like, a decision making process for choosing. Okay, is it interesting to me?
Mm-hmm.
Cold calling is interesting to some people.
They do, yeah.
The battle of having to like convert somebody
Mm-hmm.
at like we don't know each other
Yeah.
and I want to work with them.
Yeah.
Okay, are you capable of doing it? Like, are you actually going to make the calls? Are you actually going to find open houses to go host? Then, like, is there some kind of opportunity in it? Like, is it actually an opportunity for you to kind of stand out? Is it profitable in the midst of that? And then eventually, is it scalable?
Yeah.
Cold calling, I don't know if it's scalable. If you get better at it, I guess. You're going to get better and better, so your conversion is going to be higher.
Yeah.
So say it's 100 calls a week, and at first you're converting, 1% of those to an appointment. You're going to get to a point where you're converting 20% of those to an appointment.
Yeah. Or you hire a ISA or
Absolutely.
something. Or
You hire somebody to scale it with you.
But you're able to train them and manage them on how you want it done.
But when you're choosing a source, it needs to be scalable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Even if it's Instagram content, it's eventually scalable because you hire a VA to do all your research for you, and then you show up for a couple hours and shoot all your content for the week.
I'd argue every lead source is scalable, even open houses.
Yeah. How would you scale open houses?
I would have like a full like system on how to do it, like with signs, with like tables, and then
Yeah.
advertise it and make it something where I could really get in like 300-400 people for open house. Maybe not that. Maybe 100 people you average.
Yeah.
I think there's a way to do it.
I think a lot of people struggle with the follow-up of open houses, but if a lot of that's automated,
Yeah.
then that scales that too.
You build in a system where they come in, scan the QR code. You
Yeah.
really dial. You have the after action hour report. Why did this many people sign in? Why did this people not sign in? How do I get everybody to sign in?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? Maybe you need to put up like those things they have at airports. What are those called?
Stanchions.
Yeah, stanchions.
Or it's like sign up for your $10 gift card. Like,
Yeah.
what if you literally paid $10 per lead?
Literally, yeah. You had a raffle or something.
Yeah.
But there's so many. You could scale open houses, I think.
Yeah. Even like QR code to some kind of guide.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your PDF download of buying a house in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or here, scan this and get access to all the other open houses in the area.
Mm-hmm. And some of these lead sources will leverage you into the next lead source.
Sure.
Like I would leverage that then to go, okay, when I meet sellers or neighbors,
Let me show you
like,
the open
look
houses
at this
we
open
do.
house I did. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
they're nothing like it.
Yeah.
Same with like expireds. Like, if you get it expired in that neighborhood, get everybody else around
Yeah. So
there.
one thing you wanted to put on the list was building a personal brand.
Yeah,
If you focus on building one lead source, you build a brand.
you do. Yeah.
Because then that's the thing you pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look at this listing we did. Hey, look at these buyer testimonials. Like, it's all those things.
It is, yeah.
If you really focus on building one.
Mm-hmm. But really have those questions that
Yeah.
that you talked about.
Yeah.
And don't think that they're dumb or petty or a waste of time, because they're not.
Yeah. You have to like look back,
Have
like
to.
what actually worked, what didn't work.
Yeah. And if you don't know why, ask why.
Yeah.
Like, hey, why would you do an after action hour report? Does it really help? Like, why would I have a checklist that says check the spelling of the buyer's name in the contract? Like, why would I have that on there? You know?
Yeah. But think of it even like personally, like you wake up in the morning and you're like, I feel bad. Okay, that's not that helpful. Why do I feel bad?
Yeah.
Oh, I went to bed really late.
Mm-hmm.
I was looked at my phone for like 2 hours once I got in bed.
Mm-hmm.
After I had a few drinks, like, okay, we could see a few things that could improve this
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
by looking at how you feel in the morning. You're not even asking, how did I sleep? No, you're asking, how do I feel? Like,
Yeah.
so just by reflecting back is such a powerful tool.
Yeah, you don't just magically have headaches while no one else does in the morning. There's a reason. Same thing with agents. You're not just magically bad.
No,
Everybody's in the same playing field.
absolutely.
You can crush anyone else around you.
So much of it is execute.
Yeah, that is really, and that's the hardest part.
Yeah. That's the thing that has to be done
It
is
does.
the work.
Yeah, and our industry doesn't attract a lot of people that naturally.
No, because maybe they get into it and they're like, oh, I've got these handful of people that want to buy with me already.
Yeah.
Or
Oh, it's
I've always kind of
easy.
liked the idea of it. Seems like you only need a couple deals to like make a living. I'm going to start by selling my own house. Like that's pretty typical in Florida. But if you want to build a business, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
But if you want to make this a business, you have to treat it like a business.
I think a huge part is because you'll never be able to quit if you don't.
Right. Also, when we talk about calendar and these time blocks, we would talk about in the business
and on the business.
And on the business. So in the business would be
follow-ups,
making all those calls. On the business would be learning about the systems, learning about the next lead source. It would be, documenting the process. It would be running after action reports. It'd be all those things would be on the business during this phase.
Yeah, that's huge.
You don't need to go out and build partnerships yet. You don't need. There's all kinds of things you don't need to do when on the business yet.
You also don't want to work on the business when you're supposed to be working in the business. In the business is the part that is tedious and not glamorous, not fun.
Right.
Like cleaning the house. On the business is like doing that project you wanted to do, like putting up a shelf. It's fun.
And eventually, you hire a cleaner.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah,
eventually, you bring in a buyer's agent. Like all those kind of things. And you can tip the scales to being on the business instead of in the business. And that's where we are right now. Like a lot of our time is on the business, especially me.
It happens very naturally though, and I think it was the E-Myth where he was like, build the system first and then hire the person. It's going to be, you cannot. He literally says you can't hire someone and then build the system around them. No, it's going to be chaotic.
Yeah.
Which is like, I think in this point, I like that. You point that out, like, work on the systems and processes, like as if you were going to like leave eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that's the beginning of phase one. I'm going to start putting this into a few videos.
Phase one is intense.
Phase one takes a few years.
It does, yeah.
That's the thing.
1 month thing.
No, it's not. And I did it in a year and a half.
And you're still going back and tweaking phase one items all the time.
Absolutely. But phase one is super important.
Yeah.
All right. Next week, we'll talk about phase two.
Nice.
See you guys.